Nexus. What's going on, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and that's the chant that's been going on, at least I think that's the chant that's been going on amongst Android users, at least diehard Android users across the nation. The Google Nexus S, newest Android Google Experience device in the United States after the Nexus 1, second Google branded device, and it's made by Samsung. We're going to pit it together against the HTC EVO 4G. Even though it's been out for 6 months, still one of the hottest devices on the market today. Which one will win in the dogfight? You know, this one has a 4.3-inch display. 4-inch display here, but higher resolution. 5-megapixel camera, 8-megapixel camera. Sprint's 4G doesn't support T-Mobile's 4G. Which one will win? We'll find out. But first, special thanks to our friends at Best Buy. You know, they hook us up with devices. They hook us up with two of these so we can give them to you in the one-paw bandit game. So special thanks to them because that's pretty cool. And you know, when you go in, you walk out working. So when you get this Nexus S, you don't have to deal with any sort of, you know, walking out not understanding the phone. You walk out working. Enough of that. Let's get into the dogfight. Let's take a look at the browsers on both of these devices. They're both running Android 2.2 and up. This one, again, 2.3. This one, 2.2. But that's beside the fact. They're both flash capable, so we can jump in here. And this is what I was talking about the display a few minutes ago. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but you look at Google, the colors and the logo across those two devices, and you can see, I don't know if you can see, but if you can, the colors are much more vibrant on the Samsung Nexus S, thanks to the Super AMOLED display, than they are on the EVO 4G. So it's constant trade-off, bigger screen or you know, or more vibrant colors. So that said, let's navigate over to PhoneDog on both of these devices, PhoneDog.com. It is kind of funny because I have to almost not really apologize, but I did not care for the 2.3 keyboard at first, and still, you know, aesthetically it's not my favorite, but I definitely have gotten to the point where I'm very comfortable using it. So, you know, for all those people that put up with me on Twitter as I was like, this keyboard's terrible, please forgive me. So you can see here, you know, it's loading up into PhoneDog.com, and both of these devices, I'll show you on this one as well, you can go over, you know, typical Android browser settings, back, forward, bookmarks, windows. You can click here, you can add another window. You don't want to wait for PhoneDog to load, you want to go to CNN while you're waiting. Click on CNN, and you can see some minor aesthetic differences in Android 2.3 that aren't there in 2.2, for example, and just some minor things in general. The icons are slightly different. They're in slightly different locations in the menu here, but you can see it's a black background as opposed to a white background. It actually works well on two fronts for the Nexus S. It's running a Super AMOLED display, so the darker the colors, the better it is for battery life. Lighter colors kill Super AMOLED displays a bit faster, so keeping that, you know, that's something to keep in mind. Pinch to zoom is very quick in my opinion, given that this device is running flash out of the box. You can see all of our advertisements over here that are running. Pinch to zoom is very responsive, given that with videos running in the background, things of that nature, not really any lag whatsoever. It's definitely not as smooth as something like a Windows Phone 7 device or perhaps iOS, something of that nature, but given what it's capable of doing, it's certainly a good device. Let's take a look. Let me go into settings and turn that off. Auto rotate screen, or turn it on rather. Go back in the browser and you can see what it looks like in landscape mode. There's the browser, and you can pinch to zoom obviously over here as well. Now while I'm on the topic of aesthetic stuff, you'll notice that the navigation bar, and I'm jumping around a little bit, but the navigation bar, you'll see little things like different colors here, darker gray and darker gray with the voicemail, whereas this, it's running Sense, but you'll see that it's still the Sense-ish kind of black here, and a little bit different at the bottom. So it just goes to show, you know, that this is running a carrier or manufacturer-installed overlay. This is running stock Android, but you can see they're both running Android and they look totally different. That's why. But you can see that a few changes in 2.3 versus stock 2.2. So pinch to zoom is good on that one. Let's jump back over to PhoneDog on the EVO, and you can see again, you know, very responsive. This one, 6 months later, it's still considered one of the best, most high-end, fastest Android devices on the market. It consistently does well in all of our polls. And you can see very fast with no lag whatsoever. Let's take a look at the market. Try to get all this in as fast as we can. This one actually has the new market. Google pushed out a new market a couple of weeks ago, and in the process of pushing it out, but for whatever reason, none of the 2.3 devices, at least that I've seen, have the new market yet. So when you jump in, You're going to see the older market on this one and the newer market on the EVO. Kind of backwards, but, you know, what can you do? This is the older market. You see the apps, games, and T-Mobile tab. And just so you know, to answer some of the questions while I'm thinking about it, this one supports T-Mobile 3G. You can put in your AT&T SIM card, but it will only run on Edge, not on AT&T's 3G. So you can see the way it's organized. T-Mobile specific stuff or things that T-Mobile have recommended. They're grouped by books and reference, business, and things of that nature. And just to show you the EVO as a comparison, you can see a nice little thing up here at the top. And then you can see apps, games, and Sprint's custom tab as well over here where they've recommended some apps. So some minor aesthetic changes, nothing major. I'll tell you the one thing that throws me every time. Swear on every single Android device they move the buttons on the bottom. So you have home, menu, back, and search, whereas on the Nexus S you have back, menu, search, and home. So I'm consistently, when I'm working with the EVO, I'm trying to hit back because I've been working with the Nexus S for a couple of weeks. So, you know, what can you say? You know, minor dilemma with a with phone reviewer. It's just the life, man. It's the life. But you can see apps grouped in the same way, and then the carousel stays up at the top as you're scrolling through those. Now, one thing I have to give, let's go to just a top free application, for example. We'll go to Gmail. Not only in portrait mode does it look good, but it also looks good in landscape mode as well. They've done some improvements to the aesthetic in both portrait and landscape, so it doesn't get choppy as you go into that. And it's very easy to scroll over here and see the description, the reviews, things of that nature. So, so kudos to that. Hopefully the Nexus S will get that in the coming days. So let's take a look at the Gmail application on both of these devices. And granted, you know, this is running Android 2.3, this is running 2.2. You get the same Gmail application on both of these devices. If you're running 2.1 or behind or anything, you know, past that, you do not get this new Gmail application. It's available in the Android market, you know, so regardless of what you get out of the box on 2.2 or 2.3, you can always update. And you'll see some minor changes like the ability, I'll zoom in here so you can see the ability of those little buttons where you can change your email account or add a new one, or click on your inbox and go directly to a different folder. Otherwise, you'll see the color schemes are slightly different again because this is stock 2.3, whereas this has since installed over. But let's open up Moto Blur, for example, just to use that as an example. Let's open it up as an example to use that as an example. That is good English. That's real good English. So we'll scroll down and you can see as you scroll through the email, the header stays at top. So when you're halfway through the email and you're thinking, who did this come from? You can see the header. Another nice touch is you can click and hit reply, reply all, or forward. So nice touches there. Again, for me, the 4.3-inch display is nice because, you know, big keyboard to respond, big display to see the text. Then again, my eyes are terrible, so you probably don't really listen to what I say because my eyes are terrible, so anything, the bigger the better. But definitely the resolution's much better on the Nexus S. So, so that's a nice touch there. Let's take a look at the speed test, just jumping around here. Let's go into the speed test and see which one. Sprint versus T-Mobile. And let's, we'll do 3G to 3G first and then 3G to 4G. Now the T-Mobile, the Nexus S, is not an HSPA Plus device, so it's not running T-Mobile's much ballyhooed 4G or HSPA Plus technology. So it doesn't have that going for it, but what it does have is a lot of other stuff going for it. So let's take a look, make sure these are both in Charlotte, and we'll see what they look like 3G to 3G. And then, like I said, we'll kick it into 4G on Sprint. Again, you know, this doesn't have HSPA Plus, but if you've seen the Nexus S versus G2 review, this one actually performed better, substantially better than the G2 did, which is an HSPA Plus device. So keep that in mind. 3,795 kilobits per second, so about 3.7 megabits per second on the download, as opposed to 1.7 megabits per second on the upload. This one didn't do so well. 238 kilobits per second on the download, 28 kilobits per second on the upload. That's slower than 56K, so that's slower than dial-up on the upload. Not too impressed there, but let's take a look. Let's activate 4G and wait for it to activate on the EVO, and then we'll run a second test with it active and see if that'll bridge the gap a little bit. Definitely not impressive numbers at all. Not impressed with that on the Sprint front. Let's wait for that to load up. But otherwise, you know, call quality with both of these devices have been very good. This has a 1500 milliamp battery. So does this one, you know, and they've both been pretty decent. I have to give the edge in battery to the Nexus S. It's much better now. The downside of the Nexus S is this thing takes freaking forever to charge. You plug it on the charger. If you're the type of person like me, I often forget at night, and then throughout the day, I'm, you know, the type of person that will charge for 20, 30, 40 minutes. then I'll go to a meeting, or I'll go somewhere, or I have errands to run, or work to do, or things of that nature. And, you know, so I'll charge it for 30, 40 minutes and let it go. You can't do it with the Nexus S. It's absolutely impossible. It takes forever to charge. A full charge takes several hours. Whereas on the EVO, you know, 30 or 40 minutes equals, you know, 30 or 40%. So you get a nice little percentage boost. So while this one charges faster, the battery life is pretty miserable in my opinion. This one charges much slower, but the battery life is pretty good. And I've been impressed with it. Now that it's on 4G, let's test it again, see what we come up with. And again, the cell site for both T-Mobile and Sprint cell site is literally, I can see it from the window of my office. So it's not far away at all. But again, you know, not impressed with those Sprint numbers, not doing a good job. 1,214 kilobits per second. And you can see it's running 4G and supposedly it has strong 4G signal. 1,214 kilobits per second, 1,029 kilobits on the upload. On this one, bam, 3,828 kilobits per second, 1,367 kilobits on the upload on that one. So definitely wins the contest there. You know, and let's take a quick look at the cameras before we go. Camera, 8 megapixels on the EVO, 5 megapixels on the Nexus S, and we'll take a quick picture of the keyboard over here. And you know, it's really a tough call. I'm going to kind of spoil it, but it's really a tough call between these two devices. They're both decent in the camera department. I probably have to give the slight edge to the Nexus S. But honestly, you know, you're not buying this device. Most likely, they're not buying it for the camera and the camera alone. So, you know, not a huge deal. But in terms of camera, I'd probably have to give it to a slight edge to the Nexus S. I think the colors are richer and more crisp. So, all in all, you know, it's Dogfight. Both of these devices are great devices. I have to crown a winner, though, and so I give it to the Nexus S. I think it's a well-rounded device, fantastic in the features department. Not to say that the EVO is not phenomenal. The one thing that this one has going for it, consumer appeal. Consumer appeal. Say it a third time. Consumer appeal. Easy to use. Somebody that's coming into a smartphone for the first time. Somebody that's not familiar, coming from BlackBerry, not really familiar with Android. It's an easy transition. I still think vanilla Android has a lot of work to do in that department. But the Nexus S, you know, comparing these between each other, the Nexus S is the way I'd go. Much more coverage to come on PhoneDog.com with both of these devices. Be sure to like us on Facebook. Facebook.com/PhoneDog. We're giving away 100 iPads, Galaxy Tabs, BlackBerry Playbooks on Facebook. Facebook.com/PhoneDog. Fill out the sweepstakes forms and you're ready to go. Be sure to follow me on Twitter as well. PhoneDog_Aaron. Ask me any questions you have about these two devices and I'll do my best to answer those. Thanks so much for watching. Keep it locked on PhoneDog for continuing coverage. We'll see you next time.